Alright, so for Hyena, for slicing it, setting it for printing, start a new project, and in the folder you'll see there's not just one project for it. That's because there's a project for each section. So we're going to start by choosing grip, and grab the grip with supports project, bring it in, and you'll see each of these is an assembly, meaning all tracks is one part. Here I'm just going to work with the semi-auto one, but the steps are very much the same for the other two. Just watch for adding supports to a couple of the overhangs. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here and grab some wheel sets, and we're going to grab, go for a full-size flywheel set, import it as geometry only, line that up with our build plate. We're just going to go with the 44mm gauge. It's easiest to just use the objects menu over here to figure out which gauge is which. But they all have supports, so we're just going to go through and get rid of those ones. You also get rid of this one and keep any of those other ones, just move it over onto the plate. Next up, we're going to need a magwell. Let's go over here, over to magwells, grab magwells with supports, import as geometry only. Here we'll work with the full-length magwell, just because. And lastly, we'll need an end section, stock ends with supports, import as geometry only. And we'll go with the long one. It's going to be a long boy. And lastly, I'll import one of the front attachments. This is the muzzles with supports option. We can drag that over. And we'll go for a full long boy and keep the long front attachment. Now what you're going to do is go around to each assembly, right click it and go split to objects. So click on the assembly, split to objects. The flywheel sets are not in assemblies, but everything else is. We'll just go through and split those up. And then what we'll do is organize everything just based on color. All of our orange parts are going to go on one plate. All of our blue parts on another. And all of the black parts on a third. When it comes to these, some of the parts, the color does not really matter. One good example of this is the barrel here for the flywheel section. Doesn't really matter what color. You can throw that on any of the plates where you have extra space. But I'll leave it on the black one for now. And we'll just arrange this so it looks nice and pretty. Like so. When it comes to the orange parts here, the only two things that need support are the muzzle, because you don't want support on this bottom layer, because it's just off the build plate, and that's the only spot you should need. When it comes to the mag release, you want to put support on the inside here, to help it work a little bit more smoothly. The front attachments don't really need support. You can add it up here on that face, but I found they print fine without it. Next, when you come over to blue parts, I'll space these out a little bit more. The magwell tops are going to want, or the flywheel tops are going to want a fair amount of support out here on the cheeks. The Merc wheels don't have these, but for the full wheel sets, you want supports there. You want them up at the front where the takedown pins go, and then in here where the wiring goes, as well as for the dovetail for the rail, and to make sure that rail can slide smoothly and easily during assembly. The battery door doesn't need any supports. The magwell top for the full-length magwell does want some supports here for the takedown pins, but is otherwise fine. Any of the tops for the front ends just want a little bit of support for that dovetail, making sure it'll slide, making sure it'll be easy to assemble later. And then for the top of the end section of it, of the stock section, you generally want a bit of support for the takedown pins. but this entire inside I found will print fine enough without supports. One area where you might want supports is for the very end here, to keep the section where you'll put an M3 nut during assembly, to keep that nice and easy to work with. But other than that, the inside here does not need any supports, at least on my printers. If your printer is bad at bridging, or if the lines in it are going lengthwise as opposed to widthwise through there, then you may want to add supports. When it comes to the secondary color here, for the bottom of the stock as well as the stock pad, those don't need supports. The barrel section won't need supports. The bottom of the flywheel section will need a number of supports here, as you can see on the bottom under where the motors will go, at the back interface for the magwell, and at the front interface for the grip. You then have the grip itself, which will want a bit of support at the back, and then at the front as well. A little bit on the inside, so that it's easy to fire and work around the switches, and then a bit more up at the top here, at the bottom of the trigger guard, to make sure that print's nice and flat. And you're not going to have anything that'll rub on your fingers when you're using it. You'll see that there's like a little lip on the inside. You don't really need to worry about that, and there's nothing else in there that's going to need support. And when it comes to the magwells, most of them don't really need any support. The full-length one here might want a little bit of support at the bottom and the back, but other than that, will print fine without it, and the other two will print without support with no issues. When it comes to the flywheel cage, like with all the others, you'll need support for the motor spots, but other than that, it'll print fine. It'll print fine on most any printer, I imagine, but it will want support for the motors, and that's for the full-size wheel ones as well as the micro wheel ones.
So for this one, I don't have all the parts or a good way of filming me soldering one of these, so I'm going to do my best to walk you through it, as well as the other assembly steps, and hopefully you're able to follow along pretty well. When it comes to the flywheel sections, the end sections, and some of the magwells, they're very similar. When it comes to the front sections, we'll be doing a select fire and a semi-auto one, so you have an idea of what all of those look like. Again, a couple of the nuts in the parts are not able to get out easily, so I'll be pointing those out as we go, so you know where they go, even though I'm not installing them. So we're going to start over here with the end piece. The assembly for a short stock or a long one are the same. So the way that I usually solder these is I slide the solenoid in from the back and cut the wires, leaving a little bit of space, and then put the Dean's connector in. Well, it doesn't matter for the solenoid paths. I usually keep the horizontal as the Dean's connector is mounted. The horizontal is the negative and the vertical as the positive. It doesn't really matter for the solenoid pathing, but for the flywheel motors and such, it's good to keep those standard. But I usually slide the solenoid in and cut the wires and hang on to those wires. They can be long enough to do that part, which we'll get to in a minute. But do that, solder the Dean's connector on, push it back in, and then you use a flywheel screw right in there to anchor the Dean's connector. And that Dean's connector should basically be flush. The body of it should basically be flush with the surface. And that will be a male Dean's connector. Now, for the rest of the assembly, you'll put one nut in there. There will be a screw in each side. Then we're going to put another nut in the top and the back, and a third on the bottom piece towards the end of it. Just using these to push that in there. It's nice and secure. On yours, there's some tolerances will probably not allow that to fall out, but good to be aware of. But that part will just slide right in, and we can take the longer of our bolts and we'll go up through the bottom here. Like so. And the other two are going to go in the stock pad. One there, and one there. And that is how you'll assemble an end section. When it comes to magwells, here I'm assembling the moose magwell, but it and the talon magwell are virtually identical in assembly. So you'll take your spring, it'll go in a little spot in the top, and the mag release will go in a spot in the top, and the mag release will come through and end up with the spring inside of it, like so. There is just pushing the end of the spring to make sure it's on the mag side of the little lip there, as that does make a pretty big difference. Then we'll take the M3 nut and bolt. I'm just going to use the bolt to press in the nut, just and simply like that, and then we'll screw the bolt in from the other side, like so. Now for the full-length magwell, this is going to have the female Dean's connector on the side opposite the takedown pins, and then the male Dean's connector on the side with the takedown pins. Again, just keeping those standard, and those are just going to go straight through, and each one will be secured by another flywheel screw. And then for the bottom piece, the mag release is going to go in basically the same way. Put the spring in, put the mag release lever in, M3 nut through the one side, and then bolt in through the other. Right, like so. Then we have these two screws nuts. So the nuts will go inside on top, like that. And if you want to use a pair of pliers to really squeeze them in there, you can. Looks like I'll do that on the one side since the other seated pretty nicely. Loosely, but nicely. And top will go on, making sure that takedown pins go to the front, what would be the front of the mag, and the other side goes towards what would be the back of the mag. So I'll put that in, and tighten it down. And it is possible if you over tighten these enough for them to rub on the mag, on the mags that you use in it. So just try to avoid that where you can. It's unlikely with how it's toleranced, but it can happen. There you go. Just like that. Now for the flywheel section. I also don't have the flywheel cage, but when it comes to wiring those, it's pretty self-explanatory. So the way you're going to wire it is you're going to have red dots to the back on the left side of the cage, and red dots to the front on the right side of the cage. And you'll have black wires going across the front of the motors and red wires across the back of them. So red wires on the back, black wires in the front, and then red dots in the front, going to the front on right side motors and to the back on left side motors. And then when it comes to putting the Dean's connector in, this will be a male Dean's connector, or sorry, this will be a female Dean's connector that the flywheels go to. And before you put the cage in, there will be a little barrel section, which just goes into the front, like so. Yours will push in further than that. This part is just being a bit tight. Yeah, so that's where that'll go. And another flywheel screw spot for that Dean's connector. And then for the top, we have male on this end and female on this end, and that'll just be a straight pass-through. I find, depending on how you cut the solenoid wires, those can be long enough to just do this run without needing any extra. But to that wire, put those connectors in, and then the rail will just slide nice and easily over the top. And we'll grab our longer screw here and the nut for it. The nut in this case is going on the outside in the rail, whereas the screw will be going from the inside to the outside of the section. And I'll just go in there. This one can be a little bit tricky to get started, but not too difficult. It can be easier with an electric screwdriver, just with how those dance around on the surface a bit more. And now for the bottom, there will be an M3 nut in each corner. These should press fit and hold in decently well, so you could flip it over and put it in. On mine, some of them are a bit loose, so I won't be able to do that. But on yours, that shouldn't be an issue. And you can sandwich this in from the front to the back. And obviously, if the rear ones fall out, there's nothing covering those, whereas the front ones do need to end up in there and on the inside of the cover. And the two shorter screws are going to go to the back. This is so we can fit the wider moose mag without them rubbing on there. But if you're self-sourcing and don't plan on using moose mags, then you can use longer screws for all four of these, just to the extent that they won't rub on a Talon mag if you use the Talon mag well, or full-length mag. And just one in each corner here. Pretty simple. One's not going all the way in, but close enough. So then you slide your mag wheel in through the back, and the end section over that. And take a pair of takedown pins. On mine, it's a little bit tight. On yours, it should be slightly snug, but not as snug. So now we have all that assembled. Next up, we're going to do the front. So for this one, we have these three nuts, or these four, which are all currently stuck in. And then there's another one that you put in here for the battery door. Another one in the battery door, and then the thumb screw would thread through there. And the battery door just slides in like that. You can tighten down the thumb screw to get it to fit. So when it comes to the trigger and rev, well, when it comes to the trigger and rev trigger switches, you'll need to take the levers off of them, and then the dots on them will go towards the back of the grip, and those should push in and end up at the same level, and end up pretty much, and the pins for those should stick out a little bit on the inside here, and those should go in. You should push those in as far as they will go, and they should be, again, level with each other. Then you can take your trigger and rev trigger and put those in through the hole there, and then kind of rotate them forward, giving them a little bit of force to get there. You may need to finagle them, like the front of this trigger is. Be able to push them all the way up and in. As you can see, they're in there pretty well. And we'll take one of our bolts, put it there, and send it through. Yours will thread in a bit more. Mine is not quite tolerance right for that. So now, when it comes to wiring, the switch on the left side is your rev trigger, and the switch on the right side is the firing trigger. So the rev trigger will wire to the Dean's connector at the bottom here, and the firing trigger will wire to the top one. For the top one, you do need to thread the wires through this blue part, and then out to the Dean's connector. It might be, I found it easier to send the wires up and then pull them out the back here by forcing it, and then using a screwdriver or something like that to kind of pull the wires out. Whereas the bottom one doesn't give you, will probably not give you much issue. But, so you have that. The other thing we're going to want to do for the blue part on, to take this, you're not, there's a spot in the top there that will just rest in, so you can hold that in, and let it rest there, and slide the barrel in. There's a slight dovetail that the barrel will rest in, so those should slide together nicely, and you can hold in the nut while you put one of our screws through the top. I'll hold it down. And then this is where the flywheel screw for that top connector for the solenoid is, and then the flywheel screw for the bottom one is lower down. For securing those two in place. Next, that just gets sandwiched on top. One screw through each side. And then a bolt through the front here. Just like that. And then that should, they should slide together, connect there. And you can put the takedown pins in through the top, like so. And there you go. That is a semi-auto Hyena, all assembled. Now for a select fire one, the physical assembly is very much the same, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. The one thing is you do have this selector. I find, well, the way it's designed is that you can put your selector switch in there. You have the little linkage that goes on top of it. You have the linkage that goes on top of it, and you have the lever. So those would be able to rest there, and this could slide down from the top. You would assemble it that way. But when it comes to wiring, the rev trigger is going to be the same. It'll just have be controlling positive or negative to the lower connector. For the firing trigger, go to pin A1 on the positive, or you'll have one side of the normally closed common circuit. You'll have one side of that from the trigger go to pin A1 on the microcontroller. The other side of that will go to 5 volt on the microcontroller. The 5 volt will also go to the middle pin on the selector switch. And the selector switch will connect to A2, A3, and A4 on the microcontroller. And then when it comes to doing the MOSFET, wire is going to come off of pin 10 on the microcontroller and go to the and if you have the MOSFET laying flat on its back, it will go to the left-hand pin. The middle pin will be negative from the battery, and the right-hand pin will go to the solenoid connector. And then we'll have a resistor going from the left hand to the right hand pin, not the middle pin, from the left hand to the right hand pin. And yeah, I have a better document for this linked down below if you're doing the select fire wiring. But yeah, that's how you do it. I hope your blaster serves you well. For now, this has been Hex, and happy blasting.